can't speak for the commissioner, but I'm pretty sure you guys have had discussions about this. In general, is the Baltimore City Police Department leaning in favor of having cameras on police officers for that reason or for other reasons?
We are leaning towards being in favor, but as I said, there's other issues we have to look at.
Okay. Second thing, Captain, you were in charge of the academy, is that correct?
I'm the number 2. We have a civilian director.
Oh, now you're number 2. All of a sudden, when I saw you outside, you said, oh, I'm the man. I get it. I was going tonight, but not last night. My question to you is, what do we do in Baltimore City to try to ensure that more African-American males get to look? I know there's a problem with a lot of them not having totally clean records, but is there any way that the department is trying to work around getting more African-American males from Baltimore on the police force? People who grew up here, know what the city's like, and kind of share the same experience that many Baltimoreans do.
This has been a real priority with the recruitment section. We actually have an event coming up, and it's geared specifically for city residents. One of the initiatives that we've taken in the last couple of years is the cadet program. So we get individuals that come out when they're 18 years of age. We want citizens who are committed not only to the city, they're committed to the police department, and they're going to stay. This is where their career is going to be.
What about a person who, though, has a minor, let's say somebody right now who has a conviction for possession of marijuana? Is that person excluded from the police department?
By state law, yes.
Okay, so there would need to be a change in state law. In other words,
That's
you wouldn't circumnavigate that in some way to get that person in the police department.
correct. That's correct. The state law gives the individual law enforcement agencies authority.
Okay, well, that's one of the reasons why you're here and we're asking these questions. Thank you.
I have a few questions, and I'll make them brief and shoot them out, and then you can answer them at the same time. The first one is, last session, we passed a bill that specifically dealt with education and training for law enforcement officers, and it was meant specifically to address this issue of extrajudicial killing, as well as excessive force and brutality. And it was, we termed it Christopher's Law after Christopher Brown, a teenager that was killed at the hand of an off-duty law enforcement officer. The FOP and pretty much the whole cadre of law enforcement representation in Annapolis opposed the legislation, and all that it did was say that we want to avoid some of the problems, so perhaps better training and education could help alleviate some of the problems down the road. The bill specifically spoke to use and level of force, life-saving, CPR, cultural diversity training, and training to handle individuals with disabilities. So the question one is, how, if at all, is that law now being enforced? And two, kind of the psychology behind resisting that type of legislation when, you know, in my view, it is a precursor to all of the other legislation that you might deem a little bit more restrictive, such as our desire to possibly now improve accountability by changing the law enforcement officer bill of rights and other things.
So what we've undertaken not only in 2014 that coincides with Christopher's Law, but we have additional plans in 2015. One of the things as far as use and level of force, we're really going to emphasize use of force that is reasonable. We're not just going to stand up in a classroom. We're actually going to put the students, both entry level and in service, through reality-based training. We have that through our facilities at the academy, and then we have our use of force simulator out at Gunpowder Range. Next year, we plan to add up our decision-making course also, and then de-escalation techniques. So there's a big focus on that when we look at our police-involved shootings. How do we get from A, B, and C to when the shooting occurs? And we're really going to focus in on the de-escalation techniques. As far as encounters with persons with intellectual and physical disabilities, there's new state-required objectives for all entry-level trainees. We have a Train the Trainer on January 8th that the state is putting on to make sure that the training is consistent statewide. We've also increased our training and role-playing from, it was about 28 hours, and now we're up to 40 hours. And we've added actual scenarios. We have a partnership with the Behavioral Health System of Baltimore, and through a grant, they have a full-time staff member at our academy. So in addition to this, the training that they facilitate, she's been able to observe a lot of the training that we have. So the same lessons are being taught throughout the 26 weeks that we have them, not just that 1 week training. As far as life-saving techniques, we use the law enforcement emergency medical care course, and we have used that for the last couple of years. It's a 4-day class. It includes CPR. As part of our in-service training this year, we used a trauma management class. We've handed out over 1,000 tourniquets to officers that should they encounter a situation where it's needed, they know how to use it. And also we'll be including CPR and AED certification as part of in-service next year for all officers. For cultural diversity, one of the things that we're really emphasizing is a new program called the Community Orientation Program. A lot of our officers are not from the city, and we're working with city leaders to create a program that doesn't just start, it's a one-time thing, it's more of a partnership where they'll come in during several sessions. The first one will be a history of the city. So the trainees that we have become acclimated. We also, a part of it is that we're really focusing on, we still have more research to do, is how barriers are created or developed that cause an officer not to be engaged with the community. So those are some of the things that we're focusing on.
Thank you. When would that be implemented?
Which part?
The last part you said that you
Oh,
were
that's
developing a
our
program?
class 1501 starts January 23rd, and that's going to be implemented then. That's the deadline.
Thank you, and I just want to, I'm not sure if this encompasses this, but I want to stress that, that the impetus for Christopher's law was the issue specifically based on the number of extrajudicial killings that were happening, particularly African Americans and African American men. And so I would hope that there would be a component of that that would address specifically the race issue, race and class.
Do I have one more second? Okay, so we have fair and impartial policing, which really goes to that. We're not only looking for explicit bias, but also implicit bias. We want our employees to know, and when they approach a situation, that they realize that they have biases. So we're going to have them understand what human biases are and how they manifest themselves, the impact that it causes on the community, and then we're going to teach them skills for fair and impartial policing. We're really going to dial it back. We're not just going to have an instructor stand up there. We've got specific role-playing scenarios where biases can come forward.
Thank you, and I'm going to wrap this up, maybe throw it at Robinson so we can move on, but there also is resistance, or has been in the past, to every attempt to modify the law enforcement officer Bill of Rights. And even experts have attested to the fact that to make sure that this Bill of Rights or these protections do what they are intended to do, to protect good officers, but also to weed out the bad, that somehow this is in the way. And so, assuming that all of you are interested in protecting the integrity of the profession and weeding out the bad officers, what would be the reason for objection to these modifications to the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights?
As we all know, the Bill of Rights is being reviewed. At this point, we cannot discuss the law enforcement Bill of Rights.
The website that you said that disciplinary actions and investigations are accessible by?
Yeah, so the use of the force investigation team, we have a website, and every time we have a category use of force, which involves a police officer shooting, in custody death, situation where officer deploys a service weapon, or a person's hospitalized, admitted to the hospital. We go out and investigate these cases. We place the actual case on the website, and at the conclusion of the investigation, we did post a summary report of that findings, the entire investigation, with the findings of the board. It's now posted on the website. And you can get to that by going to the police website and clicking on the force investigation team.
I'm sorry, what website? What's the website?
So you go to the Baltimore Police website, and there's a link on the upper right-hand corner that says Force Investigation Team. You click on that link, and it takes you to our website, where you'll see the maps of crime in the city, as well as where the use of force are used, and also the list of our cases that we're handling. And then you can click on where the summaries are, and it'll pop up. You'll see the actual summary report that's signed off by command.
And is this available at the point of incident, or is it after an investigation?
So the point of incident, we immediately put the date, the complaint number, the location, and the type of force used. That's immediately put up within 24 hours. This is a Friday. We try to get it up on Monday. And then the conclusion of the investigation is when we put the summary report up.
Thank you. Delegate Robinson, and then shortly we will hear questions from the audience in the same rules as before, which is please step up to the microphone. You have 1 minute to ask a question, and it must be a question for the specific panel. And you know, we're not going to take maybe questions from everyone, but the first. Wow. All right. Now, keeping in mind, there are still some people signed up to testify. This is not your testimony. This is simply if you have a question for law enforcement. Thank you.
One of the questions I wanted to ask was about the Bill of Rights, and you already addressed that. But all the training that I heard you talk about, not once have I heard anything about human trafficking. Is that not an issue? Is that not a part of your training?
Oh, no, it is. It's a state mandated objective. It gets taught at entry level, and then it's also taught at in-service training.
Would I be able to find out exactly what it is that you are being trained in? Because that's an escalating problem now. And I'd like to know what it is that you're being trained in. Would I be able to get any of that information?
Yes, ma'am.
From where?
I'll exchange emails with you, or I can get your phone number or a person that represents you, and I'll be more than happy to give them that information.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now, earlier, at the beginning of this hearing, I called on Stephen Tabley, who's a veteran of the police department, wasn't in the room at the time. I want to acknowledge the fact that he's there. I'm going to give him a minute, if he would like to briefly just testify to what his area is, his purpose for being here, his advocacy, and then we'll move on to the questions. Thank you.
My name is Stephen Tablin. I'm a retired lieutenant for Baltimore City Police Department from Homicide Squad. At the time I retired, I was Assistant Director of Education and Training and former Chief of Police in Baltimore, Maryland. In the 1970s, we had 19 police officers shot and killed. At that time, Commissioner Pomeroy gave me exclusive rights to investigate all police-type shootings. At that time, if we had a close case, we would send the case to the grand jury. I can say at the time, we did not have a 10-day rule. I'm not saying that a police officer doesn't have a right to have somebody represent him. But what I am saying is when you wait 10 days, cases get cold, memories fade away, stories get a whole lot different. So I would say that the 10-day rule is something that we should do away with.
Yes.